Yeah, it's funny because yesterday I was telling Elijah something in the kitchen. Do you remember that, babe?
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, you know, babe, I just feel like our schedule is not really set up to serve me. You know, I feel like our schedule is set up to serve you. And his immediate response.
No, wait. We were talking for like 10 minutes.
Well, it was 5 minutes.
It was like 5, yeah.
But his immediate response was, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have Elijah, my husband here.
What's up, y'all?
I drug him. Is it drug?
Drugged.
I dragged him on the channel today. So we're gonna be talking about what we've learned in marriage this far. We're actually gonna be married 6 years. What day, babe?
October 30th.
October 30th. Is it even October 30th? I feel like we change it every year.
We had 2 weddings, which is why there's always confusion every single year. We had the ceremony with our family and friends, and then we actually had to go to the court and do another wedding.
Yeah, just for our marriage license.
Yeah, for the marriage
license. They were closed on the weekend, and we didn't get it before. Yeah. So get them.
Ratchet.
Yeah, but October 30th. So yes, we're gonna be married 6 years, and we just wanted to share what we've learned this far. We're by no means perfect, but I just know what we've learned has helped us, and hopefully it'll help some of you that are early on in marriage, who want to be married, and all of that. So let's get into it.
All right, let's do it.
So the other day I was talking with Elijah, and I was basically telling him, I was like, oh, you know, babe, I just feel like we're almost 6 years married. I feel like, especially in the area of our conflict resolution, I'm like, oh, I just wish that we kind of had it together already in that area. And I was just basically expressing to him, and I was just like, but then I told him, I was like, you know what, now that I think about it, even though it has been 6 years, I feel like those first 6 years, we didn't really know what to do. And now we kind of know what to do and we have the tools. So I feel like it's gonna be exponential growth from here. And you kind of broke down the 4 levels of competency.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
So yeah, I don't think it's been 6 years. I think it was more so first 2 to 3 years of our marriage. It was just we don't have any clue what we're doing. And then plus it was we didn't have anybody who was married around us either.
True.
To learn from.
Okay, true.
I mean, outside of our parents.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we started talking about the 4 levels of competency. And it's this, just this concept that we've been learning over the last year or so. Seen a couple different people talking about it. And so the 4 levels of competency real quick are, level 1 is unconscious incompetence, which is you don't know what you don't know. You're starting something new, you're building a new skill, and you're jumping into it, and you're so just ignorant to what is necessary to be good at the thing, that you don't know where to start, right? Yeah. But you're doing it. Then level 2 is conscious incompetence, which is all right, now I know how big this subject is, how long it takes to get good at it. I know that I'm not good, but I'm taking steps to figure out what I need to learn or what I need to do to get good. Level 2. And then level 3 is conscious competence, which is, all right, you know what you need to do at this level, at this stage. You're starting to do the things that will make you good, but you have to think about them. So it takes conscious thought, energy, effort to do the things, right? And then level 4 is unconscious competence, which means that you now have essentially reached mastery of a skill, and you can do it without thinking about it. So tying your shoes, riding a bike, playing a musical instrument, playing a sport. It's when you get so good where you can just step on the court or step up to the instrument or get in the kitchen and just make the thing without having any recipe, without thinking about it at all. That means you've reached mastery in the 4th level of competency. So to tie that all in, we were talking about it, and going into marriage, especially if we didn't do premarital counseling.
Didn't we?
No, we did it after. We literally went to a premarital.
That's the first lesson.
We went to a premarital seminar after, in our first year of marriage.
Oh right, we were already married.
Yeah, in Toronto.
That's right. That's right.
It was for couples who were getting married. We was yo, we need whatever we can get.
We need this now. We're a little late, but hey.
Yeah. So going into marriage, we didn't. I mean, luckily we were both blessed to where we had parents who had long marriages. My parents have been married for 29 years now. And your parents have been married for how long?
I don't know, in the 20s.
20 something, yeah, 20 something. Like
Yeah.
they've been married pretty much since close to around the time we were born.
Yeah.
No shade. But so yeah, we went into it, and pretty much the only examples we had, because we didn't have any friends that were married. I was the very first male out of my friend group that was married. I didn't have any homies that was married or even thinking about it. You were the same.
Yeah.
You were the first woman out of your friend group to get married, and so it was like we was just going into it kind of solo dolo.
Yeah.
And didn't have any support, so we were at that like unconscious incompetence. Like
Right.
we didn't know what the heck we were getting into.
That's
we didn't
true.
know what the recipe was to learn, and like we were just so in love that we felt like we would figure it out.
Figure it
along the way,
out. Yeah.
you know, which we have been. But
It's always better when you're equipped with tools.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't need to be out here cooking chicken breast and vegetables with your hands on the stove.
Yeah.
You're gonna get burnt. But so yeah, we were there for the first couple of years, and then I think like we started running into issues and like running into conflict and just different things, and we were like, okay, how do we do this a better way? And I think that's when we reached out to folks at our church or churches that we were going to. Excuse me, at the time. And I think, yeah, really, before we did any official marriage research, we turned to like our spiritual leaders. So it was the churches that I think we were like, kind of going to different churches in Toronto at the time, trying to find a church home. So we went to the pastors at the different churches we were visiting, got marital counseling from some pastors at churches that we went to, did a couple seminars and workshops and things like that. And so I think that was like the first introduction into like level 2 of competency, which is your conscious incompetence. So it was like, okay, now that we're actually getting help from outside sources, from people who have who are in healthy marriages, who have been married for 20 plus years, it's like, okay, now we're seeing, hey, we can handle communication in this way. Hey, we can handle conflict in this way. Even like we had our kid, year 1.
Yeah.
We had our son. We got pregnant 4 months after we got married.
Yeah, I think it was
Something
4
like that.
months.
Yeah, like 4 months. So even that, like we had to figure out parenting while like just figuring out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was crazy.
But yeah, so we started learning about what to do, even though we weren't necessarily doing it. We were exposed to the right things.
Yeah.
And so we took those lessons, started trying to apply them, and that got us into like stage 2.
Yeah.
And then I feel like, I mean, we're kind of different opinions right now.
I feel like we're at stage 2 still. Elijah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we're at stage 3, which is conscious competence, which is like now we know what to do and we're doing it. It doesn't mean you're doing it 100%. I'm doing it 100% of the time, but we are doing the things that give us the formula for success. But it's just like we have to think about it. We have to like, make sure we're being super intentional. It doesn't just come second nature.
Okay. And I feel like we know what to do, but we're not doing it consistently, which is why I still think we're at level 2.
Okay.
You know? So, yeah, I think that from even all of what Elijah said, the main 2 things from that is just pulling on your resources is like a major marriage lesson for us, like pulling from people that can teach you, accountability, all of that, therapy. It's just so good to have people around you that can sharpen you. And then I would also say that the other major lesson is like just being okay with where we're at and like trusting that as we begin to know what to do, that will start to kind of implement that. And like from there, it'll be exponential growth, you know, because I feel like I can be pretty hard on like us in our marriage and being like, oh my goodness, we should be here by now. But it's like, I can't measure that by anybody. I have to measure it by us, you know, and like just move at the pace that we're moving at because we're different from every other marriage.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, and we were talking with some friends even last night, and something was mentioned, which is like, I think I feel like as long as you're making progress, you're moving in the right direction. You know, because I feel like when it comes to anything, it's like if you're stagnant, and anything in life, when there's stagnation, like there's death.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like from like a physics standpoint, when your molecules in your body stops moving, when your heart stops beating, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like as long as there's movement, there's momentum, there's energy and effort being put into a thing, then you're going to continue to get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was listening to this interview yesterday actually with one of my online mentors, and he was saying like it was a business interview, podcast, whatever you want to call it. But he was saying like a lot of business owners, they want to see, all right, I'm making 100K a year. How do I make like a 400% increase? How do I go from 100K to 400K? Or how do I go from 100K to 200K a year? And he was like, that's not a sustainable way to grow. Most like when most like successful businesses, and I'm gonna apply this to life, when they get to a certain point, like you're already doing a lot of the right things, and it's about like optimizing the things that you are doing to make them incrementally better.
Yeah.
So it's like if you are doing some right things, then it's like, how do you take those things and how do we make them 5% better,
Yeah.
or 1% better? And then it's like, if you get 1% better, every week for a year, like you've made huge strides instead of trying to make these gigantic jumps all at once.
That's so good. That's so good. Another thing that Elijah and I have learned, I think for me, is like being able to put verbiage to something really helps us know like, okay, this is what we were doing and this is the healthy way to move forward. So for example, conflict resolution is our biggest struggle in marriage. And for the longest time, I thought that Elijah was the main problem when it came to conflict resolution. I didn't even see where I was falling short in that area. And it wasn't until, was it 2021 or 2022? Maybe 2022.
It's probably 22, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until 2022 when one day Elijah and I decided like, okay, you know what, moving forward, what we're gonna do is we're gonna like really make sure that we're watching stuff specifically around the area of conflict resolution. And we came across John and Julie Gottman, and they're just like really great marriage experts.
Written tons of marriage books. They're like, I'd say like one of the biggest marriage resources available.
Yes, and they're great. Yeah. And we came across this thing called the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's like the 4 Horsemen of divorce, 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Yeah, and basically he says like he can tell that if you do these 4 things in marriage, that basically it's going to be a major predictor of divorce. Yeah. So we were watching it, and basically the 4 Horsemen is when you're in conflict, it's like you're criticizing the person. You're like basically like labeling them and attacking their identity. The second one is defensiveness. And it's obvious. Like when you're in conflict, like you don't take any responsibility. You're always just defensive. Yeah. The third one is contempt. So essentially that's like making your partner feel like you're better than them almost in a way. And then the fourth one was stonewalling, which is like when you disengage from the conversation, you shut down, and basically like you just put a wall up and your partner can't really get through to you. So we were watching this, and the one that really convicted me, and Elijah called me out on it, was like, oh yeah, that's what you do. And it was contempt. And basically like how I would come off in conflict is like I would say things, and I would come off a certain way, like, oh, I'm better, like I know how I'm going about this is better than you are. And I can't really think of a specific example. Can you think of a specific example of like something that I've said that kind of has come off that way in conflict in the past?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I mean, more so like what comes to mind is like the first thing that you were saying, as far as like assigning things to people, which is like, you do this, you're this, you're that. And it's more so like, or we've learned the healthy way to deal with that is your actions making me feel this way.
Yeah.
So instead of like telling somebody what they did or what you think that they believe or what you think their intentions were, it's like instead of that, like talk about how their actions affected you and made you feel. Because if you're gonna say if you're gonna make an assumption about someone, say they did this because of this, or they were doing this because they wanted to do this, like they wanted this outcome, that opens the door for a lot of arguing, kind of bickering back and forth. Versus like, if you're saying your actions made me feel this way, like, nobody's gonna argue. You can't argue my feelings, or I can't argue your feelings.
Yeah.
Because that's like, that was your experience, or that was your response to the situation. As
opposed to like labeling that person, they're automatically gonna be defensive because you're attacking their identity. And that's extremely hurtful just in general. And that was another thing I struggled with too very early on in our marriage. Like I would criticize Elijah's identity. I'd be like, you're selfish, or you're impatient, you're this, you're that, and like label these things, just mean labels, and it was just really hurtful towards him. So I did that. The contempt thing, I can't think of a specific example, and neither can Elijah, but like I definitely did struggle with the contempt thing as well, where I would just come off like I was better than him. And then do you want to speak to like which one you struggled with?
Yeah, I'd say defensiveness a bit. I think because I felt labeled, and then definitely stonewalling. Like I got just to a certain point where I felt like me voicing my opinion was never taken well. And granted, I'm sure a large part of that was due to my delivery, which is something I'm still working on. It's like I can say things rough and just like very blunt, I think unfiltered. And so from doing that, you know, for like leading at the beginning of our marriage, and like seeing that, okay, I'm trying to express myself, but it's not being received the way I would have expected it to. It's like, okay, well, is it express your feelings and have it lead to a bigger argument, or just shut up and listen and like, you know, get the conversation over with? So I kind of lean towards, all right, let me just shut up and like listen to what my wife has to say, and then just try to resolve the conflict, which is stonewalling.
Yeah.
Or kind of can be perceived as stonewalling.
Yeah. And then I would perceive that as, oh, he doesn't even want to be in the conversation. He doesn't even want to be here. And then it would just make everything 10 times worse. So we just realized, like, when we heard another resource outside of us that specifically labeled some of the things we were doing in conflict, it helped us realize what we were doing wrong and what we needed to change moving forward. So I hope that really helps you, because just getting the verbiage for that was really powerful for us, because now when we're in conflict, I'll be like, oh, that's stonewalling, you know, or like he might call me out on something like that, you know. So it's so helpful. Yeah. What's another thing that you would say that you're learning, babe?
Yes, something that I'm learning and still figuring out is how to connect in conflict, because I think the way we get into conflict, it's like I'm still pretty like solutions based, and you know, I'm being more conscious of, hey, sometimes you just need to be in a conversation and just listen and understand and empathize, and not try to find a solution, because like we've learned that just like me being super logical problem solver, like, all right, you got an issue, I'm listening, and we gonna figure it out right here, right now. Like a lot of times you don't feel completely understood and expressed if you start to express yourself and I'm automatically saying, oh, well, that's because of this. That's because you did this, or that's because I did this. And all we need to do is 1, 2, 3 step plan, and the problem will be resolved. And that's like rushing the process. Yeah. You know, and so our therapist had been saying this for over a year. But for some
Shout
reason,
out to her.
Yeah, it just never sunk in deep enough. The seeds never were taken by the ground. So she was just always saying, like, in conflict, connect first. Yeah. And so if you can connect, and if y'all can come to an understanding, the solution becomes much easier. Yeah. And even same podcast I was listening to, one of the things that was mentioned in that podcast was understand, like, you can't hate something and understand it at the same time. Right? So I think it's hard to be fighting with someone if you truly understand them. And the example they used in the podcast was like, if someone like hates you, dislikes you, is upset with you, one of the questions that they'll probably ask is just, or the statements that they'll say is just like, yo, I can't even understand what this person, like, why they would do that. Like, why in the heck would they do that to me, right? Or why could they be so dumb and do this action, right? It's like there's confusion there when there's those negative emotions. And so I'm realizing now that, like, connecting in the conflict, I think connection brings understanding.
That's so good.
And then the understanding will help bring resolution.
That's so good. Yeah, it's funny because yesterday I was telling Elijah something in the kitchen. Do you remember that, babe?
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, you know, babe, I just feel like our schedule's not really set up to serve me. You know, I feel like our schedule's set up to serve you. And his immediate response.
No, wait. We were talking for like 10 minutes.
Well, it was 5 minutes.
It was like 5, yeah.
But his immediate response was, okay, babe, well, you know, this morning I took Safe don't you think that you could have like did some work around that time instead of going to sleep? And then before I could respond, he was like,
actually, let me backtrack. I said, let me backtrack.
Yeah, let me backtrack. You know what, babe?
Do you feel? I think I asked, do you feel fully expressed?
Yeah. Do you feel fully expressed? And then he was like, I hear you. Okay, you know, like just pulling more from me because that's very much how I am. I'm an external processor, and Elijah is very much like, let's get to the solution. And he like, I really appreciated seeing him backtrack yesterday. It was actually funny. We both laughed. Because like that could have potentially led to an issue, but he caught himself and was like, okay. Even though he was actually low-key right. I could have done some work instead of going back to sleep, you know? But like us being able to process together helped us get to a better solution, and it was like healthy, and it was like loving, and it was caring.
And that was an example of connecting first.
That was an example of connecting first, right? And it comes from a good place. Like he wants to get to the solution right away because he wants to get to the solution, right? But it's just so important that like we're connecting. So I'm glad you brought that up. And then another thing that I'm learning, I would say, is because there's so much responsibility in marriage. Like right now we have 2 kids, you know, we have to cook, I have to clean, we have to do laundry, we have to, you know, like there's always so many things to do. What can really happen is we end up kind of can feel like roommates sometimes, because it's like, oh, Elijah's doing what needs to be done, I'm doing, and we're just kind of like trying to get all the duties and the tasks out the way, that sometimes like we'll go a day without even giving each other a peck on the lips. And I feel like this week we fell off, to be honest. But like what I learned,
Beefing. That's what happened when you're beefing.
Yeah, that's what happened when you're beefing. We were beefing last week, but you took me on a date and it kind of helped things a little bit, so.
The Italian, you know what I'm saying? Little pasta.
I love Italian food. But yeah, anyway, so one of the main things that I'm learning is like making sure that you guys don't go a day without kissing. Literally, it changes the atmosphere so much in your home. Like, it's like this, I don't know, it just makes you guys remember like, okay, we're in this together, we're a team. Yes, this week might be busy. Yes, we might have all these things that are going on, but like taking that like 5 seconds a day to kiss. Like I found that with us, like kissing, what is it, begets kissing? Is that the word? Like
it begets a whole lot. I just kissing that.
You're crazy. But like basically it would just make us realize like, okay, like yes, like we're in this together, like so lovey, would like bring that romance back, and it was just so sweet. Like I said, we fell off this week just because we got into a little argument, but the key with that is like even when you guys are arguing, like you sustain that, you know, you still like kiss because you guys are still like on the same team. And that's another thing as well, like when you're arguing, sometimes you forget that you're on the same team and you guys are trying to get to the solution together. And I feel like Elijah and I, we could do better at that, like realizing, no, it's not about me getting my point across, it's not about Elijah getting his point across, it's about us meeting together and like holding hands through this and getting to solution together, because we're literally on the same team. Like it doesn't make sense for me to be acting like I'm on the Raptors and he's
oh god. You didn't make it anywhere from the Raptors. Just give up.
Shut up. But you guys get what I'm saying. We're literally on the same team, so we have to work together to get to the solution. I would say that's the gist of what I'm learning right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just mention one other thing that just popped up in my mind.
Yeah, sure.
I think something that was like super beneficial, I think, for our marriage as a whole was really starting to understand, or not even starting, but just like looking into more detail the differences between like how men operate, how they think, how they move, versus how women operate and move.
Are you talking about for men and for women only?
For men and for women only.
Guys,
yeah, like
those
one of the
books,
best marriage books. It's a series, I guess, for men only, which is literally a book for men to read, and then for women only. And it's a dope concept, like, cause the for men only goes into detail about like, here's how women function, how they operate, like why they're emotionally oriented the way they are, their strengths, you know, the areas where you need to pour into them more. And then the for women only book was explaining to men at their core, kind of same thing, like how they operate, all that good stuff. And I was surprised that you said you've learned a lot, like you felt like your kind of eyes were opened from reading that book.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and I was also very convicted because I felt like as I was reading it, I was like, oh my goodness, like, okay, I do see this in Elijah, and oh, this does make sense. And I think I was convicted because a lot of how you're wired and how you're made up, I would be like frustrated about, but reading in the book, like seeing like, oh no, this is his makeup and the reason why is because of this was really helpful for me. So yeah.
Like what, like one track mindedness or something?
Yes. So like one thing that I've gotten on Elijah about in the past is I'm like, you're so one track minded. Like if he's working on the piano,
I don't want nobody to bother me.
He doesn't want,
I'm
like
not trying to do anything else.
Yeah.
I'm just like, block out the world.
Exactly. And he has a really hard time like multitasking. Like for me, I'm like, I can do literally 30 things at once. Like I can have the laundry going.
Hard time. It's just like I choose not to.
But it's also part of your makeup, which is what the book was breaking down. Like it's your makeup to really just focus on one thing. Like that's how you're wired.
I function the best.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas women, we can have like 30 tabs open in our brain. I can have the laundry going. I could be like doing the dishes. I could be tending to Safe. Whereas with Elijah, he'll be like on the piano and like that's his main focus. Or like if he's cooking, that's his main focus. Or if he's and sometimes I need him to like, bro, I need you to do this as well, or I need you to watch Safe as well, or I need you to do this.
It'll get done when it gets done.
And he's like not like that. So in the book, it really spoke to that, and it kind of made me feel so convicted because it's like, oh wait, this is actually how he's wired. Like he's truly wired to focus on one thing at a time, and that's how he functions optimally. And I was basically judging him to my standard, which is once again that contempt thing, you know. So that was really helpful for me. And for you didn't feel convicted. You felt like you understood it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought most of it was just like review of kind of what I'd known already. I think it was just a reminder, though. It was a reminder that, hey, like when it comes to, I think for me, the biggest thing that probably stood out was like, when it comes to communication and conversation, like you have to be super intentional about leading emotions first, not logic first.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like it's so far out of my nature, just because like my family, we just did not operate that way.
Yeah.
At all. Like even my mom didn't operate that way. She was like logic first, emotion second. And so I think it's something that just takes so much mental energy to get out of the 1 + 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
You know, like this is the way it's supposed to be. And instead of like who cares about how it's supposed to be? Let's talk about how it feels.
Yeah.
You know, and focus on that first. That was just, I think I need a constant reminder of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I feel like for us, like we're nowhere near where we were when we first got married, you know, and that's 100%. A blessing. I think that there's a lot of people that get married, but they're still in the same place. And it's like what you said earlier on in the video, like stagnancy is really death. But we are growing, you know, and we are progressing. And I'm just glad for like all we've learned, because I didn't even expect this video to be this long, but I feel like there's a lot. Yeah, you know, and we haven't really, there's still so much more that we've learned. Yeah, but maybe we'll just have to do a part 2 for you guys. So if you really like this video and you enjoyed it, please let me know what's the most powerful thing that you picked up from this video. Let me know in the comments below. Like this video, stick around, watch another video, and just let us know if you want a part 2, because if we get enough comments about wanting a part 2, then we'll drop a part 2.
Yeah, follow my channel, Real Kings Never Die, at Real Kings Never Play.
Lying. I was like, that is not his channel. But my husband is on his personal brand journey. So follow him on Instagram, Elijah Muse, and his YouTube channel. I mean, I'm not even gonna tell you guys to follow his YouTube channel because his YouTube channel is music tutorials. Yeah, but follow him on Instagram. He's getting his personal brand game up, and it's just exciting to watch. So.